saw this story. It was a couple of weeks ago. We had Johnny Bench on, the best catcher in history, two-time World Series champ. And Johnny was going to auction off a lot of his items. And I think what we think, and when I was growing up, I thought Johnny Bench and Pete Rose and Joe Morgan and Tony Perrette, they must be as rich as anybody in the country because they played for the Big Red Machine and they won World Series titles. And then you realize what they got paid when they were playing is a whole lot different than what these athletes are getting paid now. And, I was a little bit sad that Johnny had to, auction off his items. You're talking about MVP. He won the MVP a couple of times. There are other things, that Gold Gloves in there. And I saw the story. Todd goes, hey, Johnny's going to keep all of his memorabilia. And I go, wait, he's not going to auction it? And he goes, no, somebody bought all of it and gave it back to him. I said, well, we got to have Johnny on because talk about a financial angel there. And Johnny Bench joining us on the program. When did you hear about it? What was your reaction when you got, most of your memorabilia back?
The auction was on Saturday, and then on Monday, David Hunt from Hunt Auctions called me and said it was a great auction and everything else. He said, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, there's a guy that wants to remain anonymous, and he said, but he bought 35 of your items, and he wants to give them back to you." Well, I mean, I lost it. I absolutely lost it. I was tears rolling down and it's breathtaking. And to think that, somebody thought of you enough, you couldn't believe that would happen. And he said, the only thing he told me to tell you was it was from a white-haired old Jew. Oh. So I only know one white-haired old Jew. All you have to do is Google 76ers sixth man. I met this guy when I was 19. He was 23. We were in Puerto Rico. We became friends. It was just, and every time I went to Philadelphia, we went out. We had it. He never had kids. He had a Rolls Royce. We drove around, and he would come to spring training every year, and we were just great friends. And he was in real estate business in Philadelphia. And so I said, I'm looking for a white-haired old Jew. And I said, and after I've wiped all the tears away and I'm trying to compose myself to even think that this would even happen, I just can't think enough. And if I'm barking up the wrong Jew, let me know. And he texts back and said, no, you got the right Jew. And he said, look, I can afford it. And he had texted me about 5 days before that and had said, why are you doing it?
And this is Alan Horowitz. This is Alan
Horowitz, yes. Yeah. And I said, I'm doing it for the kids. I said, I've seen too many families torn apart, whether it be with memorabilia from a celebrity or an athlete to people who have paintings and antique furniture that do it. And I wanted to make sure that my kids were secure. And, I just turned 73. So, and all these things that are happening to our people around us, it was the right decision. And now it's it's incredible, Dan. It's just unfathomable that this could happen.
How much did he spend for those 35 items?
Over $1 million.
Oh, man.
And so with that, I started designating the Baseball Hall of Fame. I called Jane Clark, the chairman. I said, this is what's happening. And what items do you want? And then the Reds Hall of Fame, and then Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame. And it was like, these people were over the top. They're saying, the guy, Mike James in Oklahoma said, it's the first thing they ask is, where's Johnny's exhibit? And now we're able to put Gold Gloves and we're able to put items in there, MVP trophies or whatever that they wanted. And several will go to Binger. But, and it was interesting. The kid said, Dad, now everybody will be able to see them.
Yeah, it's true.
And he said, I didn't want these in the hands of collectors people would never, your fans, your family would never be able to see them. And I would have sent one to you, but your desk is totally full.
I would have gotten rid of a Danette. I would have gotten rid of Todd and put maybe your Gold Glove over there instead of him. Absolutely. So when
that would have made a great 4-shot. Yeah.
How do you explain to your kids what happened?
Oh, I've tried. And they say, really? They can't really get their heads around it. I called my attorney first and I said, this is what happened. And he just sat there. He was stunned. And then he called me back 10 minutes later and said, I still can't believe this. He said, and then he's called me back the next day. And the people that have heard about it, and now the response is just, Alan Horowitz is the angel.
Yeah.
I believe there are angels among us. I mean, it's the Alabama song, and I don't know that, Dan, can you ever imagine this actually happening? And it's still, we talked yesterday, and the only thing he wants is to meet the kids, and I'll take him to Philadelphia as soon as the COVID clears and we can get up there and meet this great man.
Didn't you do enough damage to the Phillies where they shouldn't be helping you?
Well, he was more of a 76ers fan. I made him a Reds fan, so it wasn't so much the damage. Yeah. I mean, I did like Philadelphia, though. Very, very good to me. Yes.
I was bringing this up the other day that it seems like the life expectancy of a stadium is around 30 years. Like Riverfront, Three Rivers, the Vet, they all look like big ashtrays there. I'm wondering, Johnny, if Fenway was built 30 years ago or Wrigley built 30 years ago, would they still be standing? Because it feels like we move on, like we have to have a new one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I don't think there's any question that Wrigley and Fenway would be, totally redundant. If you put a modern ballpark out there, then they got to change dimensions, and it becomes just a cult thing for these people. I mean, you can see the way they sell out every year, every game in Boston. How Wrigley fans want to be out there, how they're building the scoreboards, and how do you change something, and you lose the aura of what these really are. It's a mystique about them that makes everybody across the country. Where do you want to go? Well, I want to go to Wrigley Field. Yeah. I think that's the one thing. And I think they feel like in Wrigley Field, you can get into a game. You can actually do that. In Boston, it's pretty much season tickets, but it's still a standard.
Best ballpark, though, you ever played in?
Oh, wow. I think the first time going into Dodger Stadium, I never liked to play there because they always had great pitching, but it was like you could hit, you couldn't stand at second base and had a fungo out of there. So, and the first time I walked into the Astrodome, and our manager had a meeting before the game, says, all right, get out there now, look at all the stuff in the stadium, get it over with so you can focus on the game. And, they had those Cowboys riding across there and stars shooting and fireworks. And you went by the ballpark where you were most comfortable. Shea Stadium had all the trash and all the airplanes flying over. You got to San Francisco, and Stu Miller blew off the mound, and I wore pantyhose one night just to try to keep warm, and the wind's blowing across and the fog, and I would throw towards shortstop. I would throw it towards shortstop so it would blow towards second base.
Go back to the pantyhose here.
Somebody, and we were trying to look for long johns, and they were so thick at the time, and I don't want to blame Namath or anything else for doing that, but somebody said that you could actually wear pantyhose and it would keep you warmer, and it was cold out there, and no, I couldn't buy any that didn't run, and you hate a run in a stocking. That's the worst thing. So I did away with those. They only made San Francisco.
Could I now, if that's up for auction, I'll bid on your pantyhose.
Okay, I won't go there, Dan.
Yeah,
but that's a.
I'm
sure your wife would love you running around the round. Yeah. These are Johnny's pantyhose. Yeah. Look at these, honey.
Yes. Yeah, and I paid good money for them. Were you? I'm going to guess you were there. Didn't Stargell hit one of the longest home runs ever at Riverfront? Was it Upper Deck where they
way Upper Deck?
What did they change one of the seats out to mark how far Stargell hit it in Riverfront?
I believe it was, and they've done that. They've done that in a couple of stadiums where Bernie Carbo hit one off of Nolan Ryan one night in the Astrodome that went up way up in the upper, and they started putting targets on it, and then the guys started the pitchers would get upset that their name was on the list of giving up the long one. But
Stargell hit one of the longest home runs. Well,
you might have been there.
I might have, but I just remember it kept going. And I lost track, because normally you would look in the green seats at Riverfront, and it just kept going, and I lost track of it. I thought he hit it out of the stadium.
I know. I mean, that was the thing where the Upper Deck was no man's land. I mean, Dave Concepcion hit one in the Upper Deck in left field, and I hit one off the facing off of John Montefusco one time, and that was my claim to fame. But I never got one in the upper deck. But Willie's must have gone 15 or 20 rows up. I mean, it was just, and I can still, he crossed home plate and just looked at me and shrugged his shoulders. He just shrugged his shoulders. He was such a great guy, and he'd whip that bat around and he'd roll that bat around, and then. But he was the nicest guy, but he just sort of shrugged his shoulders. I'd look at him when he came across home plate. I've been there for some good ones.
Did you ever pull a Crash Davis and tell the batter what was coming?
No. I remember when Clay Dalrymple was the catcher for the Phillies, and Gene Mauch told Clay to tell Pete what was coming because they couldn't get him out. And told Pete, look, Gene wants me to tell you what's coming. And so he said, okay, first pitch, here's a fastball, right down the middle, strike one. All right, here comes a curveball, strike two. And Pete's just standing there looking at it and everything else, and he stepped out of the box and told the umpire, would you tell him to quit talking to me? I don't want to know what's coming. One night we were in Montreal, and Gary Carter was the catcher, and Dan Schatzeder was the pitcher. And it was the perfect count for a 2-1 slider on the outside. And I looked back at the kid and I said, kid, what's this one? He threw me the slider about 30 rows. How do you do that, kid, when I crossed home plate?
Wait, you knew what he was going to do. He was setting you up, and you were.
Yeah, it was just a situation where I knew that was his favorite pitch. He was going to try that slider on the outside and break it over. And I said, what's this one, kid?
Well, I'm happy for you. You got to, everybody shares in this, everybody benefits, and they get to see that memorabilia. And once again, great thumbs up. Thanks to Alan Horowitz. It is Hanukkah, so, he came to the rescue and gave you a wonderful gift there. And
I want to cry now, but Merry Christmas to all of you and the Danettes, and I hope you're well. I hope your health is good.
Thank you, buddy. That's the great Johnny Bench. Baseball Hall of Famer.